Peabiru trails, well, Peabiru, it's a Guarani, Brazilian Guarani word, okay? In Paraguayan Guarani, which is like it's a different dialect, but it's the same language. It's called Tapé Aviru. These are very old roads. We have many, many photographs of these roads. They all converge to Ratanabá, and they are a world-wide web of roads. In other countries, they refer to this road as the ancient Indian trails, the ancient trail. Each place calls them differently. Here in South America, they call it Peabiru or Tapé Aviru. And we have found many of these trails in Brazil, in Paraguay, in Bolivia, in the Amazon, in the Andes, everywhere. I found parts of it in the United States a couple of years ago when I did a task with a Dakila group upstate New York. I found a piece of this road in Putnam County. So they are everywhere. And they are highly magnetic, if you will, because they follow what people call the ley lines, which is not the magnetic grid. Okay? And they are very interesting because they are places of very high vibrational frequency that facilitates many of our tasks, many of our training, and the interaction with the partners. Why? Because doing training in these places, you greatly accelerate your brain activity in a synchronized manner. And this is the key for everything. And it is the most important training in order to physically, face-to-face, converse with the partners. And here in our farm, in our headquarters in Dakila, there are Peabiru roads. They sort of, especially here in Brazil, they are we can find them in many, many places. Why? Because we're near Ratanabá, so we have plenty of these roads. The farther you are from Ratanabá, of course, there's less of these roads, or they are a little bit more difficult to identify. You can also find them under the sea. There are bridges. There are some of these roads that you can observe them with a Google Earth app, but you must have the Pro, the Google Earth Pro. You can identify these roads, especially in the Azores region near Europe. Once upon a time, you could walk from Brazil to Africa to Portugal. You could walk. Well, because the sea was lower, much lower. The sea level was much lower than today. And you could virtually walk around in these roads, there are bridges, it's very, very interesting. Very interesting. And you find them everywhere, all over the world. Because, for instance, here in Brazil, since the partners have showed us a few of these Peabiru trails, we sort of know how they look like here because of the vegetation and the geology of Brazil. It's easy for us to identify because since the partners showed us a few of them, they sort of look like a little bit, because of the specific vegetation of Brazil. That's why also it was easy to locate them in Paraguay. Why? Also because we had help from the natives. You see, the Guarani tribes in Brazil and in Paraguay, especially in Paraguay. They have this very strong in their history, the Peabiru or Tapé Aviru trails there. The interaction with a couple of deities of the Guarani mythology, supposed mythology. One is Tupã, a small guy, very active, used to speak very quickly, used to move around very quickly, and used to come in this ball of light that the Guaranis used to call apicá, and used to land in their tribes and pass on information. Those of us here that have interactions, have already had conversation with Bill, one of the partners, Bilu, you know who we're talking about. And he told us it was me that they were talking to. He confirmed that it was no mythology. It was a reality. It's an interaction of the 49 with the Guarani tribes. And another guy, taller guy, that the Guarani called Pai Sumé in Guarani. And later on, when the Jesuits started, indoctrinating the Guarani tribes, they used to say, no, that's not who you're talking about. That's Saint Thomas, São Tomé, in San Tomé, in Spanish and Portuguese. And in fact, it was Rankstar, one of the persons that we talk to here. Is not from the 49 races, but he assists the 49 races. We had several conversations with him, and as a matter of fact, I showed once to you guys the video of him with the magnetoid technology when the light comes out of his hand. Do you remember, Angela? When he opens his hand like this, you can see it in a light. That's him. That's Rankstar. And that he was known then among the Guarani as Pai Sumé. And he's known among esoteric ufology groups as Ashtar. I don't know if you heard about the Ashtar Command and Ashtar Shiran, he's the head of the Ashtar Command. It's not really like this, the real story, but it's Rankstar. And as a matter of fact, we asked him, why people call you Ashtar? And he said, because those that I spoke to didn't really understand, what I was saying, and they misunderstood my name. It was interesting that. And he was one of the Guarani deities that used to train them. The Guarani tribes, that they are very suspicious of the white people, very suspicious. Few took the time to do the proper research with them. As always, there was never someone from academia, never an anthropologist, a historian that got the story right. Why? Because, as I say to you guys all the time, these people are indoctrinated in the dogmas, in the narrative that the powers that be want to be the truth, So they can even fathom, oh no, this Guarani, they interact with the highly advanced being. No, this is mythology, all that same old that we hear. No, these are ceremonies, these are temples, these are, It's not that, It's not that. However, a very interesting journalist, Brazilian journalist, her name is Rosana Bond. She's from the south of Brazil. She took the time to study with the Guarani in the Santa Catarina state. It's a state in the south. Near her town of Palhoça, there was a Guarani tribe, and she took the time to befriend them, to learn the language, to learn the customs, to learn the mythologies. After 7 years, she earned the confidence of the elders, and they began telling her the real stories of Peabiru. She wrote 3 books. I have them. In Brazil, they are totally dismissed. Oh, this is nothing. She's not a historian. She's not an anthropologist. Well, Rosana Bond is a journalist, curious journalist, a journalist that learned Guarani, that learned about their culture, that took the time to befriend them, to get acquainted with them, to gain their trust, because they're very distrustful of white people. And she did an incredible work. She wrote these 3 books. I know that these 3 books are reference books about the Peabiru trails in Germany, in France, in Portugal, in England, abroad. They are valued as, highly, I would say there's absolutely no work such as hers. It doesn't exist. She did something unique, but in Brazil dismissed by academia, who are all in bed with these globalist groups and stuff like that in order to maintain. They are gatekeepers, They don't want anybody to know the truth. They want people still believing the old fairy tales. And this book was a threat, very hard to find in Brazil, very hard to find. She wrote this book several years ago. I read them, and I went to inquire about the content of the books with the partners. And they even told me, but Felipe, you've been dealing with us for such a long time, you know so many things. Do we have to still answer what you're asking? Weren't you able to identify us in the book? To identify our MO, the way we train you guys, is sort of the way we train the Guarani. Can't you see it? And then I clicked, I was like, oh my God. It's because we're never sure of ourselves. We're like, oh my God, I have to confirm the information. We are trained since young that we don't know anything. We have to receive confirmation from a higher power. It's always like this. And I got scolded, by them. Trust your knowledge and trust your experience. It's exactly that. I think that if you are able to, find information about, for instance, in the States, the ancient Indian trails, maybe you can begin to pinpoint, where the trails are in the United States. I know Alabama, I think Tennessee, these places, they have plenty of them crossing, I'm sure, from east to west and also from south to north.